Christmas Eve, in Chicago Lake. Wind slicing like a knife, my baby's breath coming out in ghost puffs, while we huddled on a bus bench under a flickering map, and I told myself I could ride the first bus to nowhere, just to feel heat on my face. Headlights washed the curb, a black SUV eased up, and a little girl in a puffball hat leaned out and asked the sentence that cracked my night in half. "Daddy, why is she sleeping here?" I opened my eyes and saw a tall man, calm voice, steady hands, and a red scarf he slipped over my son like it already belonged to us. My name is Riley, his is Eli, and that man was Ethan with his daughter Maya, watching me the way kids do when their hearts are bigger than their experience. I said the thing women like me say to protect what we still have. "Don't touch him, please." And he didn't flinch. He just said, "I'm not here to take anything. I'm here to add heat," and in the mirror of his tone I could see all the other voices I'd learned to dodge. Pity voice, church voice, cop voice, and how this wasn't any of them. "The wind got meaner," Maya whispered, tiny person. "We're going to fix this. You okay with that, Mama?" And that word landed like something I hadn't let myself hear in months. I counted turns in the SUV in case I needed to find my way out. I watched the city flash by like a postcard I wasn't invited to. And then we were in a penthouse with a tree glowing gold and a bassinet in the guest room, and the kind of quiet that tells you someone actually lives here, someone who knows where the nightlight is and keeps the extra blanket truly clean. "You're safe here," Ethan said. "Take the room. Eat if you want. We'll talk in the morning." And he didn't ask me for my story, like a toll to sleep under his roof, so I set Eli down. I sat on the edge of the bed with my shoes on just in case, and I heard the small clicks of safety and order. Switch door blanket. And slept like a person who'd been running on fumes. Morning comes early, when habit is louder than comfort, so I washed the blanket, cleaned the counters, scrambled eggs, and told myself, I work for what I use, you know what I mean. Ethan walked in a robe, surprised smile, and then the test appeared, a woman with a bun tight enough to hold up the whole house, Mrs. Alvarez, who looked me up and down with the love of a guardian and the eyes of a general. "Kindness should be wise," she told Ethan. "Homes are holy." And I understood. Even as it stung so, I packed quiet Eli's blanket, the little red scarf, my sweater still warm from the dryer, and I headed for the hall. Maya hit me like a seatbelt. "Please don't go," she said. "Mommy always told me the best gift is helping someone who can't pay you back. You and Eli are our gift." And Ethan appeared at the end of the hall like a man hearing a promise he made years ago and decided to keep today. "You're not using us," he said. "You're doing everything except that stay." I didn't have belief in bulk anymore, so I paid in installments. One day, then one more. There's a sunroom in that place that catches the lake like a mood, and in the corner, a dusty box of art supplies waited like a door I forgot I owned, so I drew again. Charcoal lines, cold pressed paper, the quiet discipline of noticing. While Maya issued royal commands from a blanket throne, draw a puppy, draw me with a crown, draw daddy with messy hair. That night she handed Ethan a folded sheet with the seriousness of a judge, and he opened it and sat down like his knees had a memory. It was him kneeling to tie Maya's shoe under a street tree strung with lights, a father learning to listen, a daughter looking up like home was a verb. "You were there," he said. "I didn't know you saw that." And I told the truth because I didn't have a rehearsed line. I noticed the things people forget to see. And something in the air changed, not romance recognition, like two people who knew grief by its first name and were surprised to meet another fluent speaker. Ethan had a gala by the river, a museum chandelier night, a borrowed green dress that made me look like the version of me I sketch but rarely meet. And I parked myself near the dessert table because that's where sugar disguises nerves. which is exactly where Vivian Lockwood found me. She had perfect hair, teeth that smiled on command, and a voice like a velvet knife. Look what the season blue in the Christmas project turned +1. And I put my glass down before it broke, and I walked into the snow in bare feet, because dignity isn't worth a sprained ankle. Yeah, that happened. Ethan found me fast, draped his coat over my shoulders like armor. You don't owe explanations to people who collect other people's pain as decor, he said. And I believed him because he didn't make a speech, he just stood there, heat against cold. The next day, I pushed Eli's stroller along the park, hoping the wind could sand down the rude edges, and I heard my name pronounced like a verdict, Riley. And I knew that voice before I turned. My mother was pressed and polished pearl studs Bible verse ready to draw blood, and she glanced at the stroller at me, not here, not like this you chose, don't expect us to clean it up, and walked away with heels that click like a gavel. That night, I didn't argue with ghosts, I bathed. Eli fed him, tucked him in and sat by the tree, while Maya colored. Then she held up a watercolor from my sketchbook with irresistible pride. A little house with light in the windows, 4 figures under a fat Christmas tree. That's Dad, that's me, that's Eli, and that's you. This is our family now, right? My throat hurt, the kind of hurt that means healing is doing push-ups. I pulled her into my lap. I reached for Eli's blanket like my arms needed a lesson, and when Ethan came down the stairs, he sat on the rug and put his hand over mine and said the sentence I didn't know I was starving for. Let someone carry you now. Then the storm threw itself at the glass, and Eli burned hot enough that the thermometer flashed a number I never want to see again, 104.2. And panic did what panic does. It took the steering wheel and floored it. Ethan grabbed keys, grabbed coats, grabbed the one kind of hope that matters, the kind you use. And we tore through the city to the hospital, where nurses moved with a practiced tenderness that made me want to thank strangers by name. In a narrow room, humming with machines, I slept in pieces, while Ethan sat beside the crib and hooked his fingers so Eli's tiny hand could find them and not get lost. And when I woke, he was still there, arm aching, heart steady, and Eli was breathing easier, and I cried the quiet kind, the kind that says thank you to the dark for not keeping what it almost took. That was the twist for me, not just that my son lived through a fever, but that a man I didn't know on a bench became the person who stayed and staying. You know what I mean is the point where charity ends and family starts. When we brought Eli home, I poured coffee and said what had been living behind my teeth since day one. I need to work. And Ethan didn't sweet-talk me out of my own dignity, he said. Tell me what work looks like for you. 2 weeks later, he drove me to a small storefront in Pilsen paper, off the windows fresh paint on the walls. Heart and hand, community studio on the glass, and he put the keys in my palm, but didn't close my fingers for me. 6 months subsidized childcare in the back, because artists have babies classes for kids. On Saturdays, you pay yourself first, you pay it forward when you can. If it fails, we learn if it stands. It stands on what you build. And that's how partnership sounds when it's not pretending to be pity. Opening night smelled like fear and cookies because Mrs. Alvarez pretended her tears were allergies and smuggled in oatmeal like contraband. Maya ran the kids' table like a tiny CEO. The barista who once handed me a free muffin slipped me a wink, and a bouquet, a nurse from the hospital recognized Eli's laugh, and I hung the shoelace drawing with a plaque that read, "The moment I noticed what was missing." A local paper did a tiny feature, and Ethan told them a sentence I've carried like a pocket stone. The world doesn't need another savior, it needs more people who will stand next to the fire with you until the cold gives up. And that's the night my lungs remembered how to exhale all the way to the bottom. 1 year later, the backyard looked like a snow globe. Someone shook too hard, twinkle lights on the fence, a fire throwing sparks. And instead of gifts, Maya declared we would paint our favorite memory of the year, so we did. And she drew a house with 4 figures and labeled them in wobbly script. Dad, me Eli Riley, and asked, "Are we a family now?" And Ethan pulled us in and said forever. If we keep choosing each other forever is a verb, and the fire snapped like it agreed. Then the gate creaked. A man stood there holding a grocery store bouquet like it could change the math. Eli's biological father, not the boy I loved, the boy who loved the idea of love when it didn't cost him anything. And he said, "I saw your name in the paper, figured you might want me in his life now." I didn't yell, I didn't open the gate wide. I didn't bargain with the part of me that used to fold. I said, "A child isn't a feeling. You visit when you're lonely. He's a person who needed you when it was inconvenient. Your timing isn't a miracle, it's a headline." And he said lawyers, custody words that land heavy in fresh snow. Ethan didn't speak over me. Maya slid her hand into mine like it had been waiting there since the bench. Eli pointed at the bouquet, and then at his blue storm of paint, and laughed louder than fear. And I told the man we'd respond through counsel, closed the gate without slamming it, walked back to the table and added a red scarf to my painting, because that's where our forever really began. Was that a win? Depends who you ask. Some folks will say a rich man rescued a poor girl and dressed it up as generosity. Some will say blood outruns every promise, and a father at a gate is a right, not a threat. Some will say a mother should accept help and never complain, even when kindness shows up with fine print and me. I think about hospital fluorescent lights and fingers hooked over a crib rail, about Mrs. Alvarez pretending she doesn't cry, and feeding a neighborhood with cookies, about Maya, drawing me into every picture like she never needed permission, about my mother's gavel heels and the long, slow work of building belonging, instead of begging for it, about how in our house we don't use the word rescue, we use listen, carry partner, choose. If this hit something true in you, tell me in the comments what you think was right at that gate. Does blood always get another chance? Does money stain a good deed, or just put it on a louder stage? What would you have said to Vivian at the dessert table or to a housekeeper guarding the threshold? Drop your take, argue with me, argue with each other. Keep it human. And if this kept you here to the end, hit like so it finds the next tired person on a cold night. Share it with someone who needs proof that staying is its own kind of miracle, and subscribe so we keep walking this out together.